They were talking about, failing. I don't think they're failing in what they are setting out to do, and that is to keep the system going. What they're failing in is trying to benefit the people. We need to have the people singing in the streets.
Chief Justice, that suggests that the Magna Carta,
yes,
the Bill of Rights, the Claim of Rights,
yes,
all the UN conventions, yes, all of these pieces of paper seem to be a cock and bull story, a construct, an apparatus within which treason and deception and fraud, yes, are perpetrated by this echelon or these echelons with impunity. Yes. Who ends this game?
We do.
I think we can, and in fact I posted recently a commentary from one of my what we call alert readers, and she pointed out that the leaders of France and several other countries have no children. They literally have no commitment to the future generations. So this is about a massive, this is why I'm so enthused about this nonprofit educational venture. The other thing I would say is that a fundamental flawed premise of Western civilization is that you have to have a job that requires you to sit in a cubicle every day from 8 until 5. That's not at all the case. The Lord's Prayer includes my daily bread. So I think we literally are talking about turning civilization on its head and getting away from this matrix-like, you must work for the system in order to be someone.
Well, in that sense, the state and the crown are reliant entirely upon forms of slavery one way or another. We are the constituent parts of ignorance that make up that format, that civilizational format. But how do we begin from a law perspective? But possibly this is a question principally for the justices. How do we approach this from a lawful perspective? Let's for a moment set aside legal and legality, because it is quite clear that the reason why this very commission is constituted, the reason why this very commission of inquiry has been brought to bear, is because of the dichotomy between legality and lawfulness. And there is a chasm of epic proportion between the two. The statutory provisions and ordinances and codes and legalities, all of that obfuscation and nonsense appears to have been dreamt up by systems, technocracies and bureaucracies. Certainly it's maintained by those bureaucracies and those technocracies. And the good people of the world remain ignorant throughout and confused as hell, let's face it. So where does law enter into this?
I said we need to go back to fundamentals. I mean, you talk about Magna Carta. Magna Carta wasn't something forced from above. It was forced from below, and it was a contract. The people agreed to support the king and run matters in a feudal way. And feudalism was not slavery, as it was a system. And the contract was, and Queen Elizabeth swore this contract when she was crowned Queen of the United Kingdom. And the contract is that the people support me and I support the people. And I think I mentioned that I don't like my new British passport because I used to be called a subject of the Crown, and I was born in Greenwich. The new passport says I'm now a citizen of the United Kingdom, just like in France, you're a citizen. And I wasn't born in Greenwich anymore, I was born in London. And when I was told that, when I objected to it, they said, oh yeah, but that was a separate jurisdiction once, it's now a suburb.
Chief Justice, you've just suggested that the premise of all of the civilization wheel was a covenant or a contract between the people and the crown. Yes. Well, were the people actually consulted? I'm not sure that they were. Landowners, possibly? Aristocrats, possibly?
Yes, I mean, but they had an obligation to their own people. I mean, you look at I know people laugh at what happened 1,000 years ago, but the reason that the Normans could successfully invade kingdom had to do with a breach in the adherence to the conscription laws. At the time, when William was going to invade England, King Harold called up, he had his own housecarls, the professional troops who looked after the crown, but he needed to call up conscription for the country, and then, of course, there was an invasion from the north. They marched to the north and they defeated the invasion there, and then they had to march back from the north of England to Hastings, and the 45 days was up by then, and 90% of the troops had to go back to their farms. So Harold met the invading force of the Normans with a very, very small army that had marched from the north of England, and they were worn out, and otherwise the Anglo-Saxons would have won the Battle of Hastings, and the Norman invasion would have failed.
But is the question not how do we go about construing a new convention, a new covenant? Can we ask the question of justice cleverly?
Yes.
Yes, Sasha, look, I think sometimes we get a little bit stuck in the, and it's important to look at things like Magna Carta, but I think we get stuck a little bit into the fact that this is set in Westminster. This is an international tribunal of natural justice. And natural justice existed long before Magna Carta. And law existed long before Britain. And what we're looking at here is dealing with situations of control, situations of slavery, which is essentially the removal of someone's right to hope and right to be and to right to their own autonomy and sovereignty. And those things go to the very core of what it is to be human. And it's very interesting to see what is happening in America right now, and it's very interesting to see that perhaps there's more control being taken or not being taken. But it's not strictly relevant to what happens in this room or beyond this room, because it's time for us to go back to those initial laws, which are natural justice. What is natural and what just is. And to go back to those points and to pull on our own sovereignty as a cloak upon ourselves, to stand up, to sing, and to move forward, and for us to actually now to establish what is right and wrong, because we know inherently what is wrong. Slavery is wrong. What's happened in Utah is wrong. What's happened in New England was wrong. What's happened in Netherlands was wrong. What's happened in Belgium was wrong. What's happened to those people who were standing in the streets in Libya, sold for the price of a flat screen TV, is wrong. So I think that is what we're here to do, is to discover what is natural justice. And in this particular point, where we are looking at what it is to be human, right? Because we're humans, and the word of humanity sits at the forefront of that. So what's humanity? What are we looking at here? So when we're looking at humanity, we look at the connection between us, because that's what defines us. That's what defines a mammal, the mother. And when that connection is broken, then we know that there's something disturbed in the system of natural justice. So, you know, the important thing for us to do is to connect, right? And I think really what's key about this tribunal is that we're looking now beyond these walls to without. We're looking to those people to stand up and to shout. We're looking to people now who know about cryptocurrency, who know about the analysis of big data, who wish to advocate, and people who wish to donate. We're looking to people who are going to be witnesses, give testimony, and that's what this is what we're trying to set off today, these last 3 days. And you'll notice that these last 3 days for me, and probably for you, have felt like several weeks. That's because the paradigm has changed. And the wonderful Jay who spoke on the screen turned around and he went and said, you know, when you let truth in, things change. And they don't go back. So the more truth that we let through these windows, the better. When the culture changes to connection, that's when we become human. And so, it's with great gratitude that I think all of us, commissioners and justices, all of us who've stood with us here and braved the crowds that are outside, it's with great gratitude, and it's been an honour to serve.
Commissioner Hutsapat, any final comments after 3 days of being on this bench?
I am delighted to have been part of this commission. I am grateful for all the people who made it possible, from the technical people to the administrative people to everybody who engaged. I felt a very, very strong, especially near the end, a very strong urge and commitment to finally do something for even one person, because that one person, one victim, represents the whole world, and we have to start somewhere. So please, let's do it. Thank you.
Commissioner Patel, did you have any last words you wanted to address to this court?
I really echo what my fellow commissioners just said and what everyone on the panel and in the audience have been feeling. But on a personal level, I thought, working with Anti-Slavery International for nearly 22 years, I'd seen the worst. But these 3 days have really just been heavy stuff that even I found very difficult to deal with. And if I can play any role in any small capacity to bring about a change in, like you said, one child is one generation somewhere, then I pledge to give my best to you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Reverend Dr. Nancy Ash, as a trustee of the court, any comments from you after 3 days of
And quite humbled to be here for these 3 days, to hear this extraordinary testimony from all of you. And we have much to do, and I am dedicated, I am devoted now to see this through. This is just the beginning, and we will have a report put out. There is so much to come, and I thank you so much. I am so honored. Thank you.
Advocate Tim Cragg, as a trustee of the court, any comments from you?
Thank you, Sasha. Yes, I echo all my fellow commissioners' views. This has been the most fantastic 3 days. And it brings to mind that famous quote that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And I feel that's the direction in which we are heading. We have received some very good technical suggestions as to how we can actually accomplish many of the fears that Commissioner Hutsabat expressed with regards to her victims coming forward, and using the new technology which is becoming available through blockchain and other means. I believe that there's a very positive future to be able to provide the transparency, truth, integrity, and honesty that all of these victims desire in their search for their own rehabilitation. And so I thank this commission for the time and the effort that everyone has put into this. It's the drawing together of energies into a single focus that concentrates that and makes that so much more meaningful than any one person arriving at that same conclusion. So collectively, we really can move the world and change it. Thank you.
Chief Counsel Steele, thank you for stewarding so much of the process over the last few days. You've done exemplary service to this commission. You've said a great deal, and you've led us in so many directions. I know that most people are probably unable to keep up with the way that your remarkable mind works. I've just about managed it over the recent months. Any closing comments from you?
No, I got involved in pedophilia many years ago, and nobody wanted to hear it. And I cannot stress the value of David Seaman and Pizzagate. That was the key to the door of the public mind. And now we are, I think, the logical follow-on. I don't know if the money will come, but I believe it will. And even if it doesn't, we can put a model out into cyberspace, and I believe people will gravitate to that model. And perhaps like Linus Torvalds built Linux, there will be the emergence of an anti-pedophilia network of citizen intelligence officers who help put this stuff up. So certainly we should think of ourselves as an offering to the public and then see what they do with it.
Your Grace, Bishop Ria Abu al-Assal, you've come from Nazareth and you've brought much spirit to this commission. You've been a huge support for a very long time. Please address the court with your closing comments. Kindly direct them to the microphone.
Let me begin by saying how much I was moved by what I heard of real stories from the different testimonies that I've had. It caused me not to sleep. That's why sometimes I felt like wanting to sleep during one of those sessions. I could not believe, to be very honest, I felt what I was hearing this is out of this world. Is it only part of Western culture? Because most of what we had came except for the Chinese. What about the other cultures? Do we have the same? I don't have words also, Sasha, to express gratitude and thank you and thank Robert and all of you who facilitated and helped us to come and understand better the situation of human trafficking. Only a few days ago, we celebrated 50 years on the assassination of an icon of human rights, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I did preach once on total commitment to justice, to truth, and to reconciliation. And I shared the story about a pig and a hen finding their way from the farm to the downtown area of London. And they noticed an ad, eggs and bacon for £5. And the hen turned to the pig and said, those human beings hardly are grateful for what we contribute so that they continue to enjoy life. I give them almost every day. And the pig turned to the hen and said, well, it's very easy for you to say this. Yours is a contribution. Mine is total commitment. Now we need to be totally committed. If I may, I would love that there should be a statement, that there be a statement from this 3 days, perhaps to endorse also partly what those people who were abused in Chile when they came to Rome at the invitation of His Holiness Pope Francis. I'm talking about last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I don't know exactly. Listen what they said. After what Pope Francis admitted and asked for forgiveness, he said, I confess this caused me pain and shame. This is the head of a church with 1.2, 1.3 billion people. The request of the abused was even stronger. We will continue to fight until zero tolerance about abuse and cover-up in the church becomes a reality. We need to head to zero abuse in whatever statement we will be able to produce. I want also to propose that the statement be sent to the Vatican, even if someone is asked to deliver it by hand.
That will be you, Your Grace.
I will. I've met with Francis already more than once. Well, second, that the World Council of Churches be also informed, that when we inform them, we want to tell them we are informed. We know what is happening. They need, in other words, also challenge the church. And I speak of the church, not all of the church. United Nations must. But for the church, perhaps under the heading, for God's sake, remind them that they believe in God, if they do really believe in God, for God's sake, time for action.
Justice Cleverly, you've given some beautiful poetry in motion words today already. Is there anything you'd like to say before we close?
Just a couple of points, really, just small points. I thought that was very important, the approach that you're making now with Mr. Binney, Chief Counsel. I think that the discussions that we've had, myself and Wolf, in relation to blockchain are very, very, very important. I think there is a clear, and I hope that this court calls us to task on it as well, as there's a clear route for us to be able to do something dramatic in this area. It will need support from people here and outside, but even within the resources that we have, there's a clear route for us to making change. I'd like to task the Chief Counsel to continue the conversation with Dave Seaman. I think there's a great opportunity for us to leverage on those people who have used data perhaps for their own ends, such as Facebook, for us to start creating campaigns which draw the attention to what's been done within this room upon social media. And because this is something that connects to everyone. That's what I'm trying to say. As much as dancing dogs, as much as politics, this is far, far, far more important. And if we change this, then we can change humanity. You know, I thought it was brilliant what Vanita said at the beginning about William Wilberforce and about it being a small room of people who changed slavery and brought in legislation. And as I walked here today, I walked past Abraham Lincoln's statue, another man with a small group of people who brought in legislation that ended slavery. And they're just people, and they're just people with friends. And, you know, and anyone who shares our cause is our friend. So let's bring them in, and we can do that through social media, we can do that through blockchain, and we can do that through groups like this.
Chief Justice, closing remarks from you, please.
I'm honoured to be here, and I was honoured in 2015 when I was appointed to this office. But I'm particularly grateful to Sasha for that phone call that he made 7 years ago when he said, "I've got a job for you." And I didn't quite realise then what it would lead into. I was just looking at the constitution of the ITNJ, and I just want to quote a few words from the beginning of it. "Let the word go forth from this time and place that the cavalry has arrived."
Well, let's hope you have a very steady seat on that horse, Sir John. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, Chief Justice, Your Grace, Commissioners, Chief Counsel, what a spectacular 3 days. There is not a lot to add, but I do want to draw attention to the symbol, if you can see the symbol of the ITNJ. Forgive me, is the camera there? Can you see that symbol? That's a symbol which you'll see all over the world. That's a symbol which is deeply connected to the occultic language and the Masonic language and the language of obfuscation that proliferates all around the world, principally in places of power. I'm talking about Paris. I'm talking about the arcane cities of the world, London, Washington, and Rome, principally Rome. That symbol is very well known to be a symbol of the pineal gland. It's not a symbol of a pine cone. Pine cone was never that interesting to look at. It's a symbol of the pineal gland, and the pineal gland set inside the human brain is the atom seed of where the consciousness is actualized. Be clear about this. I'm not taking this commission into the conspiratorial basement. I think the testimonies of our good people have already proven that we are deeply embroiled in conspiracy. Deeply embroiled in collusion, conspiracy, treason, fraud, deception, malfeasance. I could go on, but I'll leave it there. This court, this tribunal, this right action that is taking place here is about actualization of consciousness. 3 words: consciousness in action. That is the only thing that matters. That is the only thing that will affect change. And I very much feel that that spirit prevails in this room today. Thank you.
We are the power behind the ITNJ. Add your voice. Sign the treaty.